Hi friends, welcome back to the Wellness Junction podcast. My name is Jordanna and it is so good to have you with me. It's Friday the 14th of February, so happy Valentines to you all. And I know a lot of you have been going on dates or being asked out for Valentines. And I know again, it's not everyone who has been asked out for Valentines. And so if you're feeling a little bit blue because no one asked you to be their Valentines, yeah, you're in good company because here I am producing for you an episode because that's all I've been doing. This episode is specifically for you if Valentine's is not going for you really well, because today I am discussing the struggles of unreciprocated love. I'll be sharing a bit from my own experience. Actually, this episode is just me sharing from my experience and the things that I learned from that stint with a crush that was not reciprocated, that crushed my heart, and I thought it will kill me, but praise be, we survived. So thank you so much for tagging along. I really hope you enjoy this one. Mostly you will enjoy it because you'll just be laughing at me. But honestly, I hope that we can learn a thing or two from my experience.
Welcome to the Wellness Junction podcast. On this show, we engage with young people to explore their lived experiences with mental, sexual, and reproductive health and well-being. We also hear from experts who provide helpful insights and practical steps to navigating vulnerabilities that come with mental and reproductive health. I am Jordanna, the host of the show, and I am so glad you're here.
Alright, before we get into it, I want to clarify something. I am going to be using pseudonyms for this episode, first of all, because I do not have the consent to share people's perspectives or even their names in this episode. And secondly, because it's my story and it's from my perspective, so their names do not really matter that much. So yeah, just have that in mind. Everything else remains factual though. So I am going to be sharing about my experience with a guy that I am naming John. Hey, let me tell you guys, if Blue Ticks was a person, it would be John. And if ghosting, okay, maybe not ghosting per se, but truly, John was the embodiment of Blue Ticks. And that whole experience, the reason why I even find it important to share specifically on Valentine's is because my experience with John really did open my eyes to who I was at that time. That experience really did open up wounds from way, way back in my childhood, and it really did teach me the importance of self-worth. And if there's anything I would wish for you, and something that I'm still constantly ever learning, that this, I can't call it even a relationship, probably let's call it a situationship. The thing that this situationship really did teach me was your worth remains intact. Doesn't matter who comes or goes into your life or what happens. You will always walk away with your worth. So let's get to it. How did I meet John? So how I met and, that whole crush period. So in 2021, I had gone back to school with the hopes of finishing the degree that I had started. And so within that period, I had also changed churches. I am a person of faith and my faith really does matter to me. So I had changed churches at that point, and in this new church that I went to, that is where I met John. Guys, do not fall in love with people from your same church. I know there are some really good success stories that come from people meeting in church, loving each other, getting married. But if you can help it, don't go that route. Because then, when things are not working anymore and you still have to see them, it's not pretty. Anyways, John was in this new church that I had gone to. And the reason why he made an impression was because he was friends with another friend of mine, like a really close friend. That's how he even came up on my radar. And specifically because in 2021, I was going through one of the biggest meltdowns of my life. I was just constantly on edge. And I think I was really just coming to the realization of the fact that I needed to see someone to help me navigate the challenges that I was going through as far as my mental health is concerned. And so I was shopping, quote unquote, for a therapist, psychologist, just someone in that psychology space to help me process the things I was going through. So when my friend, let's call her Joanne, so when Joanne did mention that, she mentioned John in a casual conversation, and I asked, what does John do? She said, he's a counselor. I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And I made a mental note because as I have said, I was looking for a counselor then. So when the first time I met John, nothing really did stand out necessarily. So the second time we did meet, I told him I have been sourcing for a counselor. Joanne told me, you do counseling, so let's get something. I was like, yeah, that's a really cool idea. Yeah, let's plan something. So I really was not proactive because I didn't know him. Like, I didn't, just that whole landscape, even though I was searching for a counselor at that point, I was still very hesitant about it because, again, I needed to get like my coins together for it. So this one time we met in church, and those conversations for after the service has ended, and our church was really nice. It used to serve us tea after service. A lot of time to have conversations over tea. That was the most special thing. One of the most special things about our church. And so all of you are already casting me a bombastic side eye, well, in your friend younger chai. No. It was one of the most special things about our church. And so just in a casual conversation, it was like, how are you? And that week had specifically been really tough. And I just sighed, and he was like, that bad. He was like, it's a good time for those sessions you asked for. And he was like, yeah, come, let's have a chat. The first session will be on the house. And I was like, cool. So we met in the course of the week, and I think that is when things really started happening. It was very subtle, nothing overwhelming at first, but I think the seeds for attraction started growing or were planted then. And I think it is just because of how he listened to what I was sharing and because of how he asked. And I really have to give him some credit because he really did help me to process through some of the things that I had not even figured out at that point. For example, he basically just asked me to narrate to him, my life, where, my childhood. And as I was narrating, I figured out something important that I really had not about my relationship with my mom. So Hapo, I have to give him some credit. So it was the year was coming to a close, and so of course traveling home for the holidays. And something else that did happen during that time was I was now a permanent member in this church, but also the church was offering an internship program for 1 year where you would just be in church, serve. And I thought about it more as a program for people who are in transition periods and you're trying to bridge between what is before and what's next. And because I was in that period where I really was trying to figure out where am I going to go professionally as far as career is concerned, am I going to stay in this new location because my school and my home are really far away from each other? Was I going to go back home? Was I going to go to another place? And I really had no bearing for life. So I just thought to myself, you know what, I'll take this year and be in this program while I figure things out. It so turns out that, John also was in another program, a different program, but with sort of correlated, but within the same church. And to add another spanner in the works, John and I found ourselves at some point living under the same roof because as a student, I was broke. I really was broke. And so I was being hosted by our friend. And so our friend was mutual and he was hosting both of us. So kind of him and his family to do that. And it was the most unplanned for thing on the planet. I could never have seen that coming. And so I think that whole idea of being stuck together and the fact that he was helping me process through this thing, I think the attraction, and also because for me, the way to my heart is through conversations. Like, if you want me to fall in love with you, just talk to me for 5 minutes and make sense. Talk to me for 5 minutes and make sense. I just be like, oh my God, do you want to marry me or something? But I really was holding back on this whole idea because John was also, there was something that I didn't quite figure out. But then there was something going on between John and my friend Jordanna, who sort of introduced us. So I really didn't want to step into that space that much because I was like, this is like a girl code, and that whole thing. So I really didn't want to go into that. But then when I think 3 months later, when I find myself full on with emotions I couldn't deny. I was just like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? So, oh my goodness. Do you guys, I don't know, you guys who have had therapists, have you yourself having feelings for your therapist just because they're listening to you? You feel like no one listens to you. This was that case. So, I specifically remember it was towards the end. Was it towards the end of February? But sometime in February of 2022 now. We were going through we were doing a session, and I remember I was having a difficult time I was trying to figure out an emotion. I can't remember. And then just during the week before the following session, we did like, I don't know, a couple of sessions, maybe like 2, 3, 4 max. We didn't go too much into it. Lord of mercy. When we were doing one of those sessions, I just told him the reason why I've been struggling particularly this week is because I realized I have feelings for you. And that is when things took a downward spiral. Because now that I had confessed my feelings to him, my feelings were out there in the open, number one. So I couldn't deny them anymore. And number two, this was also happening at a time when I was doing a lot of processing about my childhood. Just for a bit of context, from when I was about 5 years to when I was 12, I lived with my grandmother because my mom had to be away in the city working. And so this period that I spent with living at my grandma's and barely ever seeing my parents, and especially because I was a child and I struggled to understand why I was left in the care of my grandma, I really did struggle with my sense of self-worth. And I would never have imagined how those struggles when I was young would contribute to my concept of self. Who am I? And if I'm not looking for people to constantly validate my worth, who am I? And so at a time when I am really in the midst of figuring all that out, because part of the reason why I decided to go into this program was when we were doing interviews for this program, of course, they're asking you a few personal questions. And one of the things that they asked me is, what is your relationship with your parents? And I remember just breaking down into tears because I realized that the years I spent living with my grandmother, never knowing when my mom was coming back, if she was coming back, and even when she was back, it was never this period for, oh, you were away and so now you're back. If you want to know more about my feelings about that period, you can basically just listen to the episode before this. I really talk about it and processing my emotions, that one. So check that episode specifically out. It's called For You, when it's hard to be away from a person you love. And so that time really did affect who I had become. And it made this experience with John so deeply personal, because now for me, my attraction to John and the fact that I was really figuring all of this out at the same time, it made things even more complex and even more complicated for me. And those were not the only things that I was processing, because even me being in this program and being away from home and I had not yet finished my degree, it really did put me at loggerheads with my parents. So I was constantly it was one whole year of not seeing eye to eye with my parents. And of course, that really did bring about a lot of hurt. The breakdown in communication between me and my parents was not really helping this whole situation. And I mean, if any of you have been through a process when you are trying to really figure out childhood wounds, you understand how deeply confusing and just how deeply personal that can be. And so to throw in this crush in the mix, it was the whole thing. But then one thing that I really did forget to mention is John was sweet. At least I did find him to be sweet. There's little things he did here and there that I really just found to be nice. And I think also because he has a proper head on his shoulders. I liked the way he thinks. Again, as I have mentioned before, what it takes for me to fall in love with a person. Can we have decent conversations? My goodness. Yeah, I am pretty much sold. But then there was just these really tiny, kind gestures that, in retrospect, he probably was just being a decent human being. But of course, crushes are not nice things. They're not nice things. They make you interpret every single thing that a person does as, oh my God, he really likes me. You see how he looked at me? Oh my God. Probably he wasn't even looking at you. He was watching TV and you just crossed by. And it was that kind of thing. But the minute I had confessed my feelings, and why do I keep doing this? Because even in my previous relationship, I just went out and confessed my feelings and it didn't work out well. We had a relationship there for a while and then it did. And it's like I never learned my lesson. So here I was again, having said, I have feelings for you. And so from then on, he knew. He knew how I felt about him. And I knew that he knew. I knew that he knew. So now we just remained in this suspense. He never really told me how he felt, at least not directly. And I kept waiting for either a yes or a no, for him to sit me down and be like, girl, you need to move on. I am not that interested. I'm not that into you. Because my logic at that point was, I just need him to tell me something. Does he like me or does he not like me? If he doesn't, he needs to tell me now and then I can process my wounds and move. And if he does, we can build towards something. I don't know. But guys, I waited. And we stayed together under the same roof for about 6 months. So it was about 6 to 7 months, 6.5 months of what felt like complete torture. Because then also I'm seeing how he's relating to other people, how he's relating to other girls, and how he's treating other people. And of course now I'm just moving with this lens of, through life with this lens of, he values everyone around us except me. I felt like he would talk to anybody else except me. We had like moments of conversation here and there. And of course, you can't totally ignore a person when you're staying under the same roof. But hey, see, I suffered because every single thing that he would do or every single thing that he would fail to do, it will just be like a dagger to my heart. And I didn't know how to move on because, again, I was just waiting for this yes, I like you too, or I'm mildly interested, or no. Those are the answers I was waiting for. So come September, a whole 8 months later, okay, maybe between the time when I had really confessed my feelings to him, maybe like, let's say 7 months. 7 months later, in September, there's this new girl who had joined our church, and let's call her Mary. Mary was good people. It was amazing to be around her. She joined the church around July. So in September, we were planning an event that will span a couple of days for the church. And so we did spend a lot of time together, planning, taking care of guests, that whole shebang. And so me and her really became close friends. Also, I started realizing that her and John are, they are on each other's radar. But because, as I have said, when you like someone, they're just constantly on their radar. So you sort of know almost every other person that they are interested in, or even someone who's breathing in their direction. It's like you notice those two small things. Call it intuition, call it just mere observation, whatever it is. During one of the times when we had met in church and we were planning for the events, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I miss chicken. I miss fried chicken so much." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, me too." So we made a mental note to go out and grab some chicken once we were done with this event and it was behind us. And the time came. We finished, the event was done, successful. And so afterwards, we met and then we're just catching up how is being in a new town, like, because when she had come to our church, she had also just moved into town. So I was like, how is it? How is everything going? And then she mentions to me that she is starting to see someone new. And in my mind, I knew without a shadow of doubt that it was John. Because as I have said, you observe things and I had noticed how they were getting along. Listen, guys, character development in capital letters. Because me, I've been here for how many months now? It's coming to 9 months. And I have been waiting for someone to tell me a yes or a no. Meanwhile, he is into something with someone else. And that was the wake-up call that I needed to sort of rip the band-aid off this situation that was going on in my mind, where I thought I was waiting for someone. Kumbe, I am in this group chat alone. There's just messages from one side of the chat. And I just remember thinking to myself that this is the beginning of the end. It was still very difficult because in my mind, I know there is absolutely no doubt that the person, she didn't mention his name, but I knew. I was like, there's absolutely no doubt that the person that Mary is seeing is John. And do you know those moments when you wake up and you're just like, is it actually really true? Maybe it's not. Because there's like 10,000 other people in this city. It could literally be any single person. It doesn't have to, maybe they're just friends. Maybe they're just being cordial. But your mind is just like, honey, it's him. Stop being delusional. So just getting to that journey of accepting first of all that nothing was ever really going to come out of the relationship or what I wanted to come out between me and John. And that all these months of constantly hoping. And I think for me, the most crushing thing was the hope, the staying in the loop of hoping that something was going to come out of it. And I think it's because there was blowing hot and cold from John's side. There's times when he would really make me feel like there's going to be something between us. There's times when he would make me feel like I am the only woman that exists in his world. Of course, his mom is there and his, sisters? No, he doesn't have sisters. It's like his mom and whoever else. But you know what I mean. Because there were those, even within this whole period when there was never really like, yes, I like you or no, I don't. But then there was like these two small gestures here and there. There's like these, these two glimmers, like that crack in the window where you're seeing like this bleakness, but there's like that crack in the window where you see some light trying to come in. Because he would have like these small two gestures where I would really feel like he would see me. Unfortunately, after I had confessed my feelings, in February, I lost my grandma. And my grandma was, my goodness, she's actually the closest person I have lost in my life. And he knew by the time we were losing her, we had already spoken about it, of course, because I had been talking to him about my childhood. And he really did give me a lot of emotional support during that time. And that, together with small gestures along the way, things he would do that would really make me feel seen. Maybe he wasn't doing the most, but again, as I have said, crushes make you delusional. They give you rose-colored glasses, and so everything that he does, it's like you're throwing a coin in the piggy bank for, oh my God, he likes me! Yay! Only 2 months later to realize that he was actually doing the same with someone else. It's life. Anyway. So when it now properly, it's now confirmed that John and Mary are actually seeing each other, the torment just continues, because in as much as at that point we weren't staying under the same roof anymore because we had both moved out of our friend's place, we are still serving in the same church, and we were on the same because we were on the same staff team because we were both doing programs that were related to the church. And so, of course, we were seeing each other every now and then. But I think also one of the things that I started to realize was that he was a little cut. When I removed the rose-colored glasses from my eyes, I did realize that he was really not the healthiest person to be around. He will do things that sometimes I was just like, that was just flat out cruel. You didn't really need to do that. Some of the things that he would say, even just as we had conversations here and there, some of the things that I would observe is like, I don't know if that's something I agree with. And especially when it came to like emotional wellness. And I think also because I expected better from someone who had a background in psychology and counseling. Should we expect our therapists, counselors to be emotionally well? Like, what should we expect of the people who give us psychological care? Stacey mentioned in our first episode. What should we expect from them? Because I really did expect better from him. But I would almost always cover it with this blanket for, oh my goodness. On this other end, he's like really cute. I'm like really attracted to him. I think me and him really have a future, and all the nonsense that you tell yourself when you have a crush on someone. But once the band-aid was ripped off and I knew that John now was seeing someone else, I think for me that was just the no that I had been waiting for. And so in the wake of me processing, what has this really been? How could I have been so... I felt so stupid. Yani, I have never felt so stupid. I was like, in Kiswahili, is it Swahili or Sheng? We say, nilibebwa ujinga. Nilisikia kama nimebebwa ujinga. Ile ya mwisho. I have never really felt stupid like I did within that week of realizing, oh my goodness. What have I been waiting for? What have I been hoping for? And it really just dawned on me. I had the answer all along. John didn't need to tell me, no, Jordanna, I don't like you that much, or I'm not that into you. Just the fact that he blew so cold and then he was like warm for like 5 seconds. And then the other time he would just like be like, I don't even exist in his world. That in of itself, if I was healthy enough in my soul, would have been something that I really wouldn't have had to wait along for him to tell me that he didn't like me. And so when I realized that, it even just made me feel even more stupid. I was like, my goodness, from the very time I had told him how I felt, even in like the 2-3 months that did lead up to that, it was very clear. It was like the answer was looking at me in the face all along. But did I want to believe? Of course not. And so in the wake of, and one of the things that I really was privileged to have at this point when that was happening was I had started to see a life coach, Coach Rehab. And we had met when we were doing this program. She was called in by our leader and she took us through a few sessions. And then when the sessions were ending, especially as we were just sharing, she told me if I was interested to take it further, because she said, I've realized you really want to continue doing the work and you're really open and intentional about this. So if you want to do a little bit more work, I'd like to take you through as you process as you process through your life. And of course, in that September, when we were planning for that event, I had such I keep saying meltdown because I do not know how to describe it, because literally for me it felt like a meltdown. Like I'm usually the kind of person who will be in my head and I will feel stressed out, but at least I will know what exactly is stressing me out. For the first time, I felt like I have no idea what exactly the exact thing is causing me tears and is causing me to just feel the way I feel right now. And so I was like, you know what? Rehab did give me that open opportunity. So I reached out to her, and just at the time when I was getting this news, I think I was like, I had either started the week before or I was going to start the following week. But I had just started seeing Coach Rehab, and thank heavens, because if I did not have Coach Rehab during that time, processing through this thing alone, I felt like I literally would have died. And I think one of the things that also was very difficult for me was explaining or telling my friends about this. Like people that really did care about me, especially Joanne, my friend who I mentioned before. Joanne and I had been close friends, and I knew that she wanted to know, what was going on between me and John, because word gets around in the grapevine, as you would imagine, especially in churches, guys. There are no secrets. If you have told anyone your secrets and you are in church, someone knows about it. I can guarantee you that 100%. Okay, maybe not 100%. Let's say like 99.99%. Let's leave 1% to chance. Or unless you've told Jesus, in which case maybe you're safe. So of course, what got around, and even though she was not in town anymore, she knew about it. And even just telling her what was going on with me and my feelings for John was very difficult, because as I had mentioned, there was a lot of backdrop to it. And I felt like if I start to explain to someone my feelings for John, I have to go all the way back in time. And I didn't want to do that because it was so hurtful. Like everything really just did hurt so much. I remember this one particular time, just during that September, I remember I was seated outside on a slab, outside the house on a slab, and so it's a little dark, but then there's the moon, and I just felt terrible. And I remember asking God, will I ever be okay? Will it ever come to a place where I don't feel like this? Because at that time, I was just feeling hurt. But to have the help and the company of someone like Coach Rehab, especially, because even without me talking about this relationship, what was going on, her just taking me back in time to figure out my childhood experiences and how they had been informing my current mindsets, and especially as it relates to self-worth, referring back to where I started. I realized that one of the things that really did deeply hurt about relating with John was because I felt like his rejection was a stab to my sense of worth. If he did not accept me, it meant that I was maybe less worthy of love and affection and attention. And no wonder when he would give me this small attention here and there, I would just cling to it so much, because at that point, I wanted anything that gave me a semblance of feeling validated, of my sense of worth feeling validated. And the worst place to look for that, of course, is in a crush. I realized that it was a lot of expectation from me to want him to validate my whole sense of being. No single person can do that. No single human being is able to do that, now that I realize. The other thing that I realized, I think now, something that I really did realize about relationships, you know, that time when you're really asking yourself, oh my goodness, does he love me? Does he not love me? Is he interested in me? Is he not interested in me? It just dawned on me. If the percentage, of course, there's usually doubt here and there when you're dating someone, even when they completely love. But if the percentage of doubt overweighs the percentage for certainty, he most likely does not. I would even like to categorically say that he does not, or she does not. In which case, and that's where the whole idea of unreciprocated or unrequited love, as they say, that's where the whole idea for unrequited love comes from. I mean, if your feelings are not being reciprocated and you're just in doubt almost 90% of the time, it's time for you to walk out, because no matter how difficult it is to accept, that person is not in love with you. That person, there is very little that you are going to do to change how they feel about you. It's not mutual. And I was just I should have known to walk out. The other thing that I really did struggle with was shame, y'all. Let me sip some water on that, because I realized that at that point, I was just starting to become aware of my emotional needs as a person, wanting to feel validated, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel known. I was just stepping into this reality that I can live a life where I am valuable, because for the majority of my life, I basically just cruised through life. It was just moving past life. No one had, I grew up with my grandmother, and bless her, she was amazing. But between managing a school and the 1001 fellowships that she had to manage, and a lot of people that really did depend on her at that point, there was really no time left for affection and attention. Oh my goodness, my throat. Okay, that's good. There was no time for affection. It really wasn't. It was just, I give you a roof above your head and food on your plates and clothes on your bodies and maybe school. It's the best I can do for you. And so we were basically just moving through life. But then now it's just coming to the realization that that is not how life, that is not all of what life is entailed about, having a clothes on your back, food on your table, a good education or something like that. Because, other aspects of life really do matter as well. And so I felt a lot of shame from wanting those things, from wanting to feel seen, from wanting to feel heard, especially from a person to whom 1 minute I existed and the next 5 or so days I was barely existent on this planet. It was painful, and not only was it painful, it was a layer of complexity was added by the fact that I felt very ashamed. And I think that's partly why I couldn't even speak with my friends about it, because I didn't want to admit that I wanted this person to see me. The only person that I wanted to see me was, this very ambivalent person. And in the wake of me processing all those feelings and all those emotions, one thing that I really did resolve to do for myself is to say no to shame. When I feel it come for me, I say, shame, I see you. I see you have walked into the door, but I'm going to need you to walk back out because we are not cordial anymore. Because I realized, when has this ever helped anyone? When has shame ever really substantially helped anybody? Never. It really does not help. And part of why I really am intentional about engaging in such conversations about our experiences as young people, especially as relates to our mental health and our sexual and reproductive health, is to rip off the shame that we feel from having these open conversations. I sometimes usually just wish I had spoken more openly about what I was experiencing with even just one person from my circle. I did mention tidbits here and there to the people around me, but never really like a full expression of what was going on in my heart at that time. But resolving to not walk in shame, but rather to extend myself a lot of compassion. Like, imagine the way someone dips themselves inside a bubble bath and there's like foam all around them. Like that, to immerse myself in compassion, because a lot of what was going on with me was patterns that had been there from ever since I was a child. All these things they were just things that were coming to the surface. It wasn't anything that was necessarily new. They felt new because I was just realizing them for the first time. And so if you are in that space, I feel like I could just come and wrap my hands around you and let you know that if you are especially experiencing any shame, I think that's a good place to start. To say no to the shame of having been attracted to someone who didn't reciprocate it. The other thing, and I mentioned this as I started, and I think that for me is the most important lesson that I learned through this crush that crushed my heart and nearly killed me, but also taught me a lot about love and men and myself, is that, friend, no matter what happens, you will always walk away with your worth. Your worth is intact. Can your dignity be touched? Yes, it can. Your dignity can be touched. I mean, of course, when stories were going around about me, and you hear this from one person because they know that other person was told, and it just felt like I was stripped bare in the eyes of people. And so I'm walking around and I don't know who knows what about me. And also in my mind, I know that no one has the full concept of the story because I have not told anyone everything that's going on between me and John. And so that really did cause me to feel like I was walking around a bit bare. Like in the embarrassed, again shameful kind of way. And I felt like maybe my worth and my dignity had been stripped off of me for a time. But listen, one thing I have learned is that worth, my sense of worth as a person, that is intact. It is irreducible. Remembering that I am still worthy. I think for me that was just like, John, you can suck on that. I am still worthy. And I mean, yeah, maybe to stick it out to him a bit. Because there's times when I feel very vengeful. But I think for me, the biggest win felt like all of this has happened and I have still walked away a worthy person. Because I think that was one of the things that I really felt like were a threat. Does it mean that because I have been rejected here, or that I feel abandoned, or that all of this has happened and maybe I didn't navigate this whole thing properly, does it mean that I'm less of a worthy person? And honey, the answer is no. I like someone who didn't like me back and I am still worthy. So fill in whatever the blank with whatever it is that has gone on with you and romantic relationships. dash, 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 and I am still worthy. I was in an abusive relationship. I got out and I am still worthy because, honey, friend, your worth will always be intact. You will always walk away with your worth intact. Your respect may be touched. Your, honor may be touched. A lot of things can be touched. Not worth. I have to insist on that. Later, much later, I left town for a while. When that program ended in 2022, I left town for a while and I came back much later to town. So even before that, John and I had met at a friend's wedding in the August of 2023 now. I can't believe 2023 was 2 years ago. My God. So we met at our friend's wedding. And before that happened, me and him had talked before because, this whole thing, like the relationship, I knew there was really nothing that was going to come out of, me and him. But I think I'm the one who had reached out and talked to him. And so he called me and we had been talking. And for some reason, we were going for this wedding. I was really looking forward to see him, to meet him, But then when we met, the only conversation that happened between me and him, and it was just like basically what used to happen even before then. He basically just made a snide comment about how I was dressed. And then he talked to me for less than 1 minute. I kid you not. Less than 1 minute. And yet we had like a whole phone call conversation, I think, for like almost an hour. But then, when we met in public, and I feel like that is one of the things that really just used to happen. When it would just be me and him or like behind closed doors, he will treat me like there's really no one that exists in life. But then the minute we would step out and we'll be in the context of other people, I ceased to exist. And it's like it would almost kill him to be seen with me, talking to me or something like that. And I think, honestly, when I was going for that wedding and I knew I was going to meet him because I knew I was going to be there. I was sort of looking forward to maybe like even just decent conversation. I think that interaction, that 1 minute interaction with him was just a reminder that John is just John, and John is always just going to be who John is, and John is always going to treat me the way John has always treated me. And it was just me again reminding myself, Jordanna, we're done. We're done. And so so that was 2023 August. And so in September, I went back because again, it's like I have a pact with this place that I can never really seem to rid myself of. But I went back because again, school. Goodness, my relationship with school is another one that needs to be talked about. I went back again because, school. Also, just to start afresh because having stayed home that whole period had been a whole thing on its own. And I still had like traces of the difficulty of being around him, where I felt constantly anxious and sort of constantly not wanting to cross his path because I don't want like a nasty interaction between me and him. And it has been quite a long time. We fell out of that. So when I went back, we didn't have a lot of interaction. There was none. Maybe if we did have conversations like once or twice. Except for that one time when one of my friends told me, but then he's really wondering why you're being cold to him. And I was like, I wonder why. I really wonder why. I mean, who really knows why? Because I was intentionally trying to steer clear of him and just because I didn't want this whole thing for being cordial. For me, I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. And those were like the last interactions we did have. Of course, there has been a lot to process. And every now and then, I remember a detail from back then. And there's still a lot of truths that I'm learning, especially about myself and how I show up in relationships, period, but also in romantic relationships. I'm so grateful things didn't work out between me and him because let's just say that it was those protective no's that God gives you. I really am just grateful that things didn't work out between me and him. And so, after rambling on and on and on and on for almost 1 hour, I am really just here to give solidarity to anyone who's in this space, especially this being Valentine's. I'm sorry if that is happening to you or if that has happened to you before and you're sifting through the difficult emotions of not being loved back by the person you really love. And sometimes it's not even just romantic, like from someone romantic. Sometimes it's even family. It's probably the sibling who you feel like will never see you for how you want them to see you. Sometimes it's a parent that no matter how much you try, things just remain cold between the two of you. Sometimes it's a friend, like a platonic relationships, or a colleague, or a business partner. You get what I mean. It does happen a lot of times. And maybe one time I can have our therapist on, and they can really unpack for us what's going on in our minds and in our hearts, especially when you are on the receiving end of unreciprocated love. And also when you are on the dishing end. I have also been... I have also really been the culprit in a lot of a few people's stories. Let me not say a lot. A few people's stories. They would have more to tell than I would. But yeah, so just giving you a lot of solidarity. Thank you so much for listening to me as I have been rambling on and on about my experience with Mr. John. If you ever get to listen to this, John, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, no hard feelings. Every hard feeling I had dissipated. And so, no hard feelings. For all my friends who are listening, thank you for those of you who are really there for me in one way or another. Even if I couldn't tell you what exactly was going on. And so yeah. This has been your Valentine special from yours truly. Thank you so much for listening to the Wellness Junction podcast. Would you share this with a friend and just have a conversation with them about the realities of unrequited love or unreciprocated feelings? Thank you so much for your time, friend. Remember, you are treasured here.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. The Wellness Junction podcast is a production of Pamoja community-based organization. It is supported by the Northwestern University Access to Health Project with production assistance from Studio Spain Media Group. Please take a moment to follow the Wellness Junction podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening. To learn more about how Pamoja CBO has impacted young people's lives over the past 15 years, please visit our website at www.pamojapamoja.org or our social media pages that are linked in the show notes. I have been your host, Jordanna, and I can't wait to connect with you in the next one. Thank you for being here.